All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the first Tech Challenge Coaches Corner of the season. I appreciate you spending the evening with us, or at least an hour of our evening together. My name is Louis Rubo. I am the Team Development Education Specialist with First Nevada, and I'll be your, I guess, call MC, presenter, whatever, for the Coaches Corner this evening. So the idea of these Coaches Corners is once a month we'll get together virtually between First Nevada and our First Tech Challenge coaches, and we'll basically talk shop. This is an opportunity for me to share administrative items with you, as well as reminders, best practices. It's an awesome opportunity for you to ask questions. So with that said, we have a small enough community here that if you want to ask a question anywhere along the way, you feel free to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask. Or alternatively, what you can do is throw your question into the chat. We have a number of First Nevada personnel here this evening helping out. They will answer your questions in the chat or stop me if I need to make sure to comment on something. By the way, this year, if you were with us before, this year we are trying to record these Coaches Corners. This was actually our third one of the season now in terms of First Nevada. We did first Lego League and first robotics competition, and so far the recording seemed to work well. So fingers crossed, we'll continue to record these Coaches Corners, and those shall be provided to you after they've been processed and uploaded to the right place. So being the first Coaches Corner of the year, especially speaking to our rookie coaches, this is a nice reminder. Everybody has to have that first year. It's just a rite of passage here, and we've all been there. Most of us in First Nevada have been former coaches, had kids go through the program, and we've gone through our first year ourselves in many ways, sometimes through multiple programs. And we do understand that first year can be a challenge, and it feels like you're getting a lot of information. But we're sympathize with you, and we're here to answer your questions the whole way through. Our goal from our perspective at First Nevada is really to make sure you're having fun. Not only your students, but you as coaches are having fun being a coach of a First Tech Challenge team. And we also want to make sure that you are preparing and do participate in your first competition. So if at any time you feel like you're not having fun, you're stressed or overwhelmed, please shoot us an email or give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. Likewise, if you feel like your team is just not quite prepared or you're falling behind, let us know, and we can help find ways to get your team caught up, or if you have any questions, we're here to do that. So hopefully at the end of the season, you've got your arms in the air like Fry here, and you're celebrating a nice, successful first year. For our senior and veteran coaches, you know where I'm coming from. Yeah, each year is a learning process, but each year we come out of it having a lot of smiles and a lot of memories. So kind of staying with that theme, yeah, we understand there is a overwhelming amount of information out there, not only coming from First Nevada, but if you just Google First Tech Challenge or First, there is a lot of resources out there, and it can very much feel like you're drinking from a fire hose or a very powerful fountain. In the case of this picture here, we understand it is very overwhelming. One of my jobs here in presenting the Coaches Corner is to kind of remove all the noise and zero in on the important conversation for you to have. And so if it feels like you're getting overwhelmed, do keep in mind that even though you're getting a lot of information, you're still getting important information, and don't feel like you're losing it all, as this season's nice and long enough and a comfortable ride that you can kind of bite off little smaller chunks as we go. And then with time, it'll all come together. And remember, your goal in that first year is really to have fun and to get to that competition. As you become more of a veteran coach, this becomes more old hat, and you come up with new ideas, and you are starting to become the source of these resources that you find online. So do bear with us and let us help wherever we can through that first season and getting you through. One of the key resources, of course, is not only these Coaches Corners, but a number of other things that we provide, such as our workshops, as well as our structure in terms of our league meets and league tournaments. I'll talk about that in a minute. This year, we've shifted over and we've put together a static folder for you on our Google Drive. We've been doing this in the past, but we've now committed to having the same folder year after year. So once you see this folder, you can just bookmark it and know every year you can come back to here and get the most updated information. Some of the early stuff you'll find in there, of course, is stuff related to our kickoff celebration a couple weeks ago. These slides are in there in a folder called Coaches Corner. Our workshop slides are in here. This is a great one-stop repository of any materials that we generate or that First generates, and we feel like we have to reshare it. So definitely navigate to this website, or I should say this Google Drive folder, bookmark it, and if you ever have any questions, you're free to come back and check out what's in there. So also, as part of this is you don't necessarily have to take notes during the Coaches Corner, knowing that this presentation is already in there waiting for you. And in fact, I've just a few minutes ago uploaded tonight's presentation, so it's already ready to go. As you see there on the right, the presentation is not just my slides. It also includes annotated notes and hyperlinks and all that. So although you'll see a lot of QR codes in my presentation, you can come back and you can just click on the hyperlinks in the notes as well. So you guys sit back and kind of process what I'm saying as we go. I love Laura there as he says, yeah, we were a hot mess that first year, and here she is coming back year after year. So thank you, Laura. So tonight specifically, being our first Coaches Corner of the season, I kind of want to go through three main topics. First off, I just want to kind of remind you or maybe even inform you of what First Nevada is and what resources we provide. I also want to talk about the specific and very important challenge resources that every team should know about. And then I want to wrap up tonight talking about kind of basically your to-do list as a coach. One of the administrative tasks that you should be thinking about here in latest September. Actually, it's quite late in September. So that's kind of our agenda tonight, is to kind of go through mainly resources and just a reminder of what tasks you should be working on as a coach right now with your team. Again, if you have any questions along the way, throw them in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself. We have a small enough crowd tonight that definitely won't be too bad to just go ahead and chime in if you like. Okay, so as a starting point, let's talk about what First Nevada is and what resources we provide to our teams. So First Nevada is a nonprofit organization. Our job is to administer and deliver all of the FIRST programs for the state of Nevada. If you're not familiar, First Tech Challenge is actually only one of a suite of programs that's provided by FIRST. There is the First Lego League programs, and there's 3 of those. There's First Tech Challenge, which we're talking about tonight, and there's also First Robotics Competition. So as a nonprofit organization, First Nevada is responsible for delivering those FIRST programs throughout the state. It can get a little confusing. I'm going to try to clarify a little bit in the next slide. But some key points here is that we are a nonprofit organization. We don't get paid any kind of commission by the number of teams and whatnot. We do this because we generally think it's a good program and that it supports future STEM leaders. So a lot of what you're going to interface with throughout the season are volunteers who provide their time to support these programs. The other important thing to keep with First Nevada here is our main job and role is to support our coaches and our teams and to provide them a fun experience. And so definitely, again, if you ever feel like you're not getting that experience, go ahead and let us know, and we can talk about ways to help kind of correct that ship. Where it does get confusing is there is another FIRST out there, and we partner with them. So First Nevada, as I was saying, is the local entity that's responsible for delivering the annual games. The FIRST that we talk about as headquarters is the ones that come up with the game itself. So there's FIRST headquarters, they're the developers of the games, and there's First Nevada. We are their partners in delivering those games locally. It's also confusing because we both use the same logos for the most part. Headquarters, they just leave it as FIRST. And then us here at First Nevada, of course, we put the Nevada underneath it. It does mean when you're Googling information, you might find other territories, other states, other parts of the world that you also hear about. So there'll be First California. There's also going to be like First Utah and whatnot. Just recognize those are also local entities delivering the FIRST programs in other areas. This will come up again later in our Coaches Corner today. A big thing to keep in mind basically is FIRST headquarters is the one that develops the games. So they're the ones that came up with the center stage idea. They're the ones that came up with the First and Show theme. They're the ones that set the standards for how long a match is, what is allowed on your robot. So they define all the game parts of it. So if you have any questions related to the game itself in terms of specific rules, you tend to go to the first website. If you're interested in things about when should your team compete, how can I get some tech support, how can I get some team management ideas, then you would come to First Nevada. So it's kind of a little confusing, and hopefully we'll clarify it as we go through the season. Just recognize there are two nonprofits who are in a partnership with each other, an agreement, if you will, to come up with and deliver the first games every year. Now, locally, it does take a village to run these programs. And so we have Scott Duncan, who is our first Tech Challenge program delivery partner. Loosely, if you want to think of it, he's like the director of First Tech Challenge here in the state. Scott, did you want to say a few words?
Sure, I like director. Maybe we can start using that. That's easier to say anyway.
I know, right?
I don't think anyone knows what the program delivery partner is. But yeah, thank you all for coming out tonight and returning this season. Appreciate that very much. I think we basically have our same team of key first volunteers. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces here to help you. But again, appreciate all the coaches returning this season. And I'm very hopeful we'll have a great season.
Thank you. Since our state is quite divided geographically, we do have two support coordinators. In the north, we have Henry, who was with us last season. He's our First Tech Challenge Northern coordinator. And in the south, we have Francois, who is our coordinator in the southern region. The roles of the coordinator are really to help us run the events locally, to find venues, and also to support our teams. So if you have any questions about the program, you can definitely reach out to any one of us, Scott, Henry, or Francois, and they'd be happy to answer them. In terms of supporting teams specifically, there I am on the left. There's a picture of me when I used to coach First Tech Challenge many years ago. So I am, as I said, the team development education specialist. My role is to support teams throughout the state across all programs. So you'll see if you've done First Lego League or First Robotics competition. I also work with coaches there. Have any questions about any of the programs or first delivery, just please let me know. In the north, Scott actually wears two hats for us. He is also our Northern Nevada team support coordinator. So in addition to being the delivery partner for First Tech Challenge, he's also our cross-program team support coordinator. So again, if you're working with the other programs, you can reach out to Scott with questions about them. In the south is Riley Camp, who's returning again for a second season as our Southern Nevada team support coordinator. Now, I just threw at you 6 different names of people who are here to help you. And you might ask, well, who do I reach out to first and foremost? And the answer is you can really reach out to any of us, whoever you feel comfortable with, whoever you have a rapport with. Basically, if we can't answer the question, we're always in meetings with each other. We'll go ask each other for the answer. So whoever you feel comfortable with, go ahead and email us. Roughly the rule of thumb, if you have anything administrative with First Tech Challenge, you can reach out to Scott directly, or if you have any questions about team coordination or team management or technical stuff, well, you can reach out to Scott too because he's a team support coordinator, but you can also reach out to me. I'll be happy to help. Okay, so as I was saying, First Nevada as a nonprofit, our role is to deliver the first programs throughout the state. And to help do kind of share the information we have with our teams is we maintain a dynamic calendar on our website. So if you go to firstnevada.org, or you can just use a QR code there on the screen, you'll go to a events page. If you scroll down a little bit, you come to this nice little calendar. We call it a dynamic calendar because what we do is we do share updated information within the calendar. So when you go to the calendar, if you click on any of the events, you'll get a pop-up window like I'm showing there on the left. In that window, we'll have information about, for example, the Coaches Corner, where you will log in, what's the agenda for the evening. If you were to click on one of our, say, workshops, you'll get a schedule, you'll get some information about times to be there. I do kind of give you a heads up. Make sure you pay careful attention to the time in there. We share this information not only with our coaches, but as I said earlier, we are a volunteer-driven program. So we put information in there for our volunteers as well. So usually we'll have a little time signature that says doors open to teams at. So just I ask you, when you do use this information, just pay careful attention to the times there. This is a dynamic calendar because as we get more updated information, we'll push it out through here. So, during the summer when we were first developing our dates of when we were going to have our meets, we would just put on here kind of a little placeholder. It said league meet on this date. And then as we found out which venue would host it, we would update that calendar entry to have our entry there for hosts. And then, of course, as we have an agenda filled out, we put in more and more. You're welcome to subscribe to these calendars so that updated information automatically gets pushed to you locally. Information on how to sign up, step-by-step guide to how you sign up for our calendars is provided on that website. If you just scroll below the calendar itself, we have kind of a guide there of how you can subscribe to it, both in iCal and in Google Calendars. So as a coach, if you have any questions about a particular event, the first place we'd like you to go is to this calendar, because it is here that we are pushing out information, and just kind of look in there and see if what's in there first. We may have missed something, and I think you're welcome to email us afterwards, but we do ask that you try going here first. I should also mention, as a last point, we do use this calendar for all of our programs, and we try to color code them as best we can. So our first LEGO League programs are in red, our first Tech Challenge events are in orange, and our first robotics competitions are in blue. I know personally on my screen, the red and orange kind of blend together. So we also use the 3-letter acronym or 4-letter acronym before. So you'll see FTC for First Tech Challenge. So you'll see that, like I have an example there on the screen. So again, as our job as a nonprofit, what we're here to do is to support your team. As we're getting building up to the competition portion of the calendar, we're here to provide support to you, to provide resources, to run workshops. Our workshops are meant to be hands-on for both the coaches and the team members alike. We recognize that a lot of us are learning. In the coaches, we do not expect you to be an expert. Even at the end of the season, your primary job is to help support these students learn, but you do not need to be an expert that then re-teaches them this information. We're all in this together, and in fact, one of the core values from FIRST is discovery, and so that applies to us just as well. We do have a whole suite of workshops coming up, and I'll show those here in a moment. They really are meant to be hands-on, so when you attend these workshops, the kids should be involved. The student members should be ones leading the charge and doing things. Coaches, you're there also to learn, but also to help us guide them on that. In addition to those workshops, we do have our monthly Coaches Corners. Of course, you're involved with one right now. In a minute there, I'll show you the dates of all these. Roughly speaking, we have them once a month. We will take December off because of the holiday season. So here's our specific dates for this year. On the left there, we have our 4 Coaches Corners. We did remove one in August because our teams just weren't quite signed up yet. Last year, we did one in late February as well, but we found it was pretty repetitive of what was in January. So this year, we're going to do 4 Coaches Corner, September, October, November, taking December off, and then having one in January. On the right is our list of workshops. We've already actually had a kickoff, if I just put it there for completeness. We're coming up very rapidly on a Robot in a Day workshop, which I'll talk about later on in this Coaches Corner. We have a couple in October. We have a virtual computer-aided design workshop hosted by one of our teams. We have an autonomous programming workshop in person on the same day that we have a scrimmage. And then we have a marketing business workshop for those teams located in the South. And then we have an engineering portfolio workshop later on. I will talk about these in more depth later on this evening, excuse me. But for right now, I just want you to mark kind of the dates on your calendar and recognize we do have a handful of our workshops coming up quite rapidly. So here's our competition schedule. So September 9th was the kickoff for the Center Stage game. Of course, that was when everyone in the world learned about what Center Stage is all about and how teams will be scored in the game and some of the judging specifics. Next up in terms of competition on our calendar is October 28th is we're going to have our scrimmage. That may ring a bell because that is also the day of our autonomous programming workshop. We purposely did that on purpose. We purposely did it on purpose. Yep, that's how redundant it was. Well, the idea is we're going to have our autonomous workshop in the morning, At the same location, we'll then have a scrimmage in the evening, or excuse me, in the afternoon. Wow, I'm really fumbling today. In the morning, we will have our autonomous programming workshop, followed by our scrimmage in the afternoon. And the hope there is our teams apply what they learn in the workshop right away during the scrimmage. Starting in November, we will have our first of our league meets. I'll dive into what those exactly are later on. Then we have a league meet basically once a month, November, December, January, and February. February 9th and 10th, we will have our league tournaments. From there, a handful of teams, or a good fraction of our teams, will then be invited to compete in a state championship on March 1st and 2nd. From there, we'll have a pair of teams be invited to the World Championship in Houston in mid-April. So there's our dates. Again, kind of just for now, recognize how long the season is. We do go from September all the way through March for most of our teams, with a pair of them going on into April. So it's almost a whole academic year. But don't look at it as a long season, but look at it as a more comfortable, casual season that you can slowly pace yourself throughout the year. So our primary source of information is the use of email. So you've already seen these a couple of times. Coaches, you will receive newsletters from Scott that will announce a lot of key and important information. This is our primary source of sharing. So I have talked about the calendar. The calendar is your way to go answer a few questions. But when we have a new announcement, say about grants or how to register for league meets or whatnot, they come out through our newsletters. We do assume coaches are reading these newsletters. This is our first way of sharing all key information. Coaches, your email is automatically added to our distribution list. So what we do is we go into the first system. Once your team is registered, we pull your emails that are in the first dashboard, and we automatically add it to our distribution list. So coaches, you do not need to add or request to be added to the distribution list. It's automatic. Now, of course, some of our teams have more than just a lead and secondary coach. If you have mentors or parents who are interested in also getting our newsletter, they can go to the first website, and if you scroll down, you will see a place to sign up to our newsletters there. You should have also received recently a request for information about your student captains or presidents, depending on how you label them. What we like to do is also share sometimes some information to them. So, for example, outreach opportunities or times where we're looking for volunteers that maybe in our first Lego League program. We like to include some information, or some of our announcements to them as well. If your team has also social media, if you might have a team email, please feel free to share that with us as well. That can be sent to Scott, and I believe Angelo also sent an email to you about a week and a half ago. If you'll reply to that, it helps us make sure all of our information, our important information, is getting out there. So as I said, we do maintain a Google Drive folder, which is our main repository for gathering up all the things like these presentation slides, as well as our workshop slides, and also challenge documents or any other documents we feel teams must have access to. We're also trying to record a number of things this season. We're putting together a YouTube playlist with that. If you go to our YouTube playlist for the Center Stage season, you'll see things like our already kickoff celebration. You will see also access to things like our recorded Coaches Corners are on there as well. So this is yet another resource for you. If for some reason you can't make it to our events, or you are looking for a Coaches Corner recorded, you're welcome to go straight to our playlist and grab that recording there directly. Again, I know I'm throwing a lot of links and slides to you. These slides are already available to you. You're welcome to come back and backtrack to them. So it's kind of like a circular story here, because the Google Drive I'm sharing about right now is where these slides are already living. So you kind of, it's like a dog chasing a tail sort of thing. The last major resource I want to talk about is our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group. We do recognize that not everybody is on social media, and not everybody's necessarily using Facebook, but we do use this as a way to reshare information. So it's never used as our primary source of key information, but it's just a way to remind you of things like grants opportunities upcoming events, task items, or if there's some unique resource out there that teams may be interested in, I'll put it on this Facebook group. You're welcome to join. When you do follow the link there, if you're not already a member, it will ask you some kind of basic information like what's your team number, what part of the state are you in. This is a great resource. We've been using it for a couple seasons now, and our group here just continues to grow and grow. So with that, I'm going to pause, take a drink here, ask questions about First Nevada and what resources we have available to you. So we see Scott's been putting links in the chat as well. And Angelo, who I didn't introduce, he's one of our 2 first senior mentors who just started joining us this year. His email is also in the chat. So not hearing any questions so far, I'm going to move on to the kind of essential challenge resources that are out there for teams. So as I said earlier, there is a lot of information out there that you can easily drown in. What I want to do in this next few slides is just say, okay, what is really some key important resources that every team should think about or turn to as they're going through their season. So these resources are provided by First. Again, delineating between First Nevada, us, local, and First headquarters, which is the ones that came up with the game. So these resources here are coming directly from headquarters. And the most important starting point I want to share with you is the game and season info page. You can navigate to it either going through firstinspires.org, or you can just use the QR code there to take you directly to it. On this landing page, you'll notice on the right-hand side is kind of some generic information about the center stage season. On the left-hand side, you'll notice a table of contents there that are actually hyperlinks to various key resources. And I do want to talk about some of them right now because there are a lot of questions we get are answered on these pages. So the first one here is I need you to go to is the game and season materials page. And this is really one of the first pages you should go to as a coach every single season. And the reason I say that is there's some essential information here. One of them is a description of how to build your game field. So what exactly are the specifications for where the game pieces are supposed to be? All that is shared on here. Where does the tape, the gaffer's tape need to be? What's the spacing between the different parts? This way, as your team is practicing, they fully understand and have a replica of what they expect to see at the league meets and the league tournaments. So you should start here in terms of studying exactly how is your robot going to interact with the game elements. The other and most important piece of information on this webpage are the game manuals. There are 2 game manuals. Game Manual 1 is roughly speaking the evergreen rules. And what I mean by that is it's the rules that are more or less the same year after year. So it's the basics of the team structure, how many kids can you have on a team, what's the judging structure like, all of that is kind of the evergreen rules. That game manual, Game Manual 1, was released in July because it didn't have so much specifics related to the center stage robot game per se. Everyone should have read Game Manual 1. Game Manual 2 came out on September 9th. That was the big global release that a lot of us participated in. Game Manual 2 has the very specifics about how do you actually score in the robot game. What can be on your robot? What are the penalties like? Game Manual 2 and Game Manual 1 together are the definitive rules for everything for all teams going through the season. Our volunteers, they know these rules as well. These are our reference guides to get us through that. It is assumed that everybody has read these game manuals. From a coaching perspective, you should read through the game manuals at least once, be familiar with what's in them, but really the students need to be the experts. They should read through these game manuals multiple times. As a tidbit of coaching advice, you definitely want to have at least one, if not multiple experts on Game Manual 2 on site during a competition. Teams are allowed to ask referees for clarifications and to make sure they're being scored properly. The best way to have that conversation is if you have an expert on your team who knows Game Manual 2 inside and out. They can go in there and have those conversations with our referees. Definitely, it's not something you need to memorize right up front, but definitely come back through it over and over throughout the season. And again, as a coach, you should go through it at least once just to be familiar with what's in there. But really, the students need to be the experts on the game manuals. I will be reminding teams of this at basically every coach's corner and every competition. Another resource provided by FIRST is their robot building resources page. So this particular page has all kinds of key information. I'll dive into a little more depth about their example robots here. They also have some CAD drawings. They have things like the labels you need to put on your robot, such as where's the power button label, where's the robot move label, things that are required of the robot to pass inspection. There's some CAD resources on here for our teams. There's hyperlinks to the other resources. One of the most important things on this page is it does link to some example robots for teams. So on the left-hand side are what we call the basic bots. The top left one is made out of the Tetrix building platform. The bottom one is made out of the Rev Robotics building platform. Both of those build instructions are linked to on that building resource page. These are great robots if you are new to First Tech Challenge and you're not sure how to even build a robot. There is step-by-step pictorial guides on how to build those robots. If you're going to join us at our Robot in a Day this weekend, we are going to build the chassis for these robots at the Robot in a Day. So your team will have a good head start. We'll also make sure they're wired correctly and they're programmed to do basic motion as well this weekend. I do want to mention the ones on the left require only the starter kits that you get when you first register, and there's no cutting involved. So these are really, every team should be able to quickly, more or less, build these robots. On the right-hand side is another Rev robot. So yes, there are two Rev robots. They are different. The one on the right is their starter bot. That one, to get the instructions for it, you go to the Rev Robotics website. This robot here is a little bit more intricate, not much more, but it does require some cutting of metal. But it's another good robot if teams are kind of at a loss of what they should build, or if you're new and still learning how to interact with them. It's a great robot to go and learn from. All three of these robots are designed to interact with the center stage game elements. They are not the end-all be-all. They cannot do everything. For example, you will not see anything on there about the paper airplane. The drones. Excuse me, I couldn't think of the word drones. You will not see any drone launchers on these robots. But in all three cases, it does have an attachment that will pick up the pixels and place them. So again, it's a great starting robot if you're new to the programs. Another resource that comes from FIRST is their programming resources page. And this over the years has gotten more expansive, more in-depth. I go here all the time. So to program your robot, there's basically three rough ways to build a programming robot. There is a programming software loosely called Blocks. We will talk about that at our Robot in Day workshop, as well as our autonomous programming workshop. It's kind of an extension of Scratch, if you will. There's a nice tutorial on there with it. The other ways to program your robot is using Java. There's a version called OnBot Java, and there's also a version where you use Android Studio to program it. There are tutorials on this website for all three of them. The tutorials are wonderful. Really, they're a great place to go, depending on which one you want to go after. I will say I didn't get the full screenshot on here for our veteran teams. FIRST is providing more and more kind of black box approaches to TensorFlow and Vuforia. So a lot of those imaging programs, they have black box programs in here for you. Definitely come in here, because as you see in the autonomous period, there's a lot of scoring that needs the camera and be able to identify different game elements. go to this website, and if you scroll down a little bit more than I showed, you'll get some nice little tutorials on here. If you're new to First Tech Challenge, I really would suggest the Blocks Programming Guide. They have changed it. It used to be a PDF document. It's now an interactive kind of wiki style approach. Really helpful in terms of walking you through in very small bite-sized chunks of how to program your robot with examples. A lot of what you'll see at Robot in a Day and Autonomous Programming follows a lot of the material that's in here. It just kind of cuts off the fat and makes it very concise. But if you're still learning the program, I would highly recommend hanging out on these pages and reading this information. The last major piece of information that is on these first pages is the team management resources. So First is more than robots. We use the robots as a hook to get kids interested in STEM and to provide them an opportunity to develop skills that they may be interested in. As part of that, your First Tech Challenge team is going to operate more or less like a little mini business. So you're not only here to build a robot that can compete in a center stage game, is you also going to have a team structure to it. You're going to be doing some fundraising. You're going to build a team identity. That's what this page is all about. It's the team management resources. So this is really about what is it like to operate as a team within the First Tech Challenge program. One of the main specific resources I do want to show you here, coaches, is there is a mentor manual. If you are completely new to First, or maybe you're a veteran and needs a refresher, or you want to expand in a certain area, definitely start with the mentor manual. It is a good starting point that talks about everything related to First Tech Challenge. So even on here, you'll see a couple example snippets from the manual. There's a mentor role. What exactly should you be doing when you're working with your team members? Like the middle one says, it talks about what does your team meetings look like? What should your structure be? How often should you meet? And really important here is what is the engineering portfolio? When does your team start working on it? What information is in there? What exactly is the engineering portfolio? I'll tell you right now, it's extremely important because it's required for any of the judging awards. The mentor manual kind of outlines all of those as a beginning point. And I would really highly recommend that all of your coaches and mentors kind of skim through this and look through what information is in there. I personally like to treat it like an encyclopedia, is that you don't have to read it cover to cover. Maybe you have a question on how your team should meet, read the meeting section. Right? Come back, read the other sections as you see fit. But it really is a nice document that answers a lot of questions about what exactly is your role coaching the team. Again, I've reached that point where I need to take a drink, ask away what questions you have. So again, these last few resources here, they're all provided by First. They are really important in getting your team started. They will answer a lot of the questions you have. And definitely when we answer your questions, a lot of times through email, we'll reference one of these documents in doing so. I do realize that some of these documents are big and it's very easy to skip or miss something in there. As you become a more seasoned coach and you read it once, twice, 3 times through, it starts to stick with you. The good news is, for the most part, a lot of our rules stay static. They become evergreen with some minor iterations and modifications year after year. All right, so the last bit of our Coaches Corner for this for tonight is I want to talk about administrative tasks that are in front of you right now as a coach. So what should you be thinking about, and what are the things we need you to be doing right now early in the season? So the first thing is a reminder. I'm really speaking mostly to our veteran coaches in this case. Every team must have 2 adults who have gone through the YPP, the Youth Protection Program, at First. And what this means is your team needs to have 2 adults who have passed the YPP screening within the last few years. And you can find out if this needs to be done by logging into your dashboard and seeing if there's a little red bar on the left that says outstanding tasks. When you click on that bar, you'll see a drop down that might say incomplete youth protection screening, or you're missing one of your coaches. And the reason I'm speaking to our veterans more so is one, is that if you're one of our sponsor teams and Leilani's been working with you, she guarantees or makes sure you get 2 coaches in there. Veterans, a lot of times we have a second coach, change schools or whatnot. Just a reminder, you have to have 2 coaches in the system. You can't build your roster with students until you are fully cleared of this. So do make sure, just a reminder, you get 2 coaches in there. Now you may add more. You can have mentors also listed on there. As a rule of thumb, any adult that works with your team more than 30% of the time, they should be listed on your team, and they should have gone through the YPP screening process. It is a rule of thumb, but it's kind of a good one to think about. If anybody works with your team more than 30% of the time, they really should be listed on your team and have gone through the YPP screening. Also, it's really important that we have the right information in there. So as I mentioned earlier, we pull from the first system your contact information. Mostly it's just basically your emails we pull. So do make sure if your email has changed, or if you do have to replace a coach on your team, we want to make sure the information on your team is correct. You can check that by going into your first team dashboard. If you go over to the 3rd column where it says team contacts and rosters, there's a drop-down menu there where you can change your contact information. It'll be done in a new pop-up window. Just go in there and relist key information, or invite other mentors, other coaches to your team. But this is where we get the information that goes into our distribution list. So it's really important that you take a moment, just check who exactly is listed on your team, and recognize those are the 2 emails that we're contacting with our key information. Now, later on, as the season goes on, this will be really important that all this is, you do have those 2 people in there, because as I said, you want to add more people if you have mentors, a youth mentor. And for those teams, which should be almost everybody, when you're going to supply us a Dean's List nominees. That is also done in here when you list someone as a Dean's List submitter. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's talk about how First Tech Challenge is kind of operated here in Nevada. We operate a 2-league structure. Basically, we follow the geography of the state. So we divide this into a Northern League and a Southern League. Through the first few months, what we do is we have league meets. League meets are half-day events where teams only compete with the robot. They get officially scored, and they will accumulate a ranking through our league meets. Then what happens is in February, we will have 2 league tournaments where all of our teams come together at those league tournaments, and they will compete. Teams will be pre-ranked coming into the league tournaments based on their top 10 results from league meets. They will continue to update their rankings at the league tournament. We will then have a league tournament playoff in the afternoon on the 2nd day, and we will crown our winning alliance at that time. During the league meets, since it's only robots, there will be no judging during the league meets. However, when it's league tournaments, we also incorporate judging. And roughly, I would say, half of our awards are based on judging. So it's really important that your team kind of gets ready for that judging process. After the league tournament, we do invite a handful of teams to compete in a combined state championship. Every year, that state championship flip-flops between Reno and Las Vegas. This year, it will be in Reno. The other thing I want to share with you is this year, we are going to limit the state championship to 24 teams. How that distribution goes between the South and North will shake out as we find registration numbers through the season up to the league tournament. So I'll just say for now, we'll have only 24 teams at our state championship, which is a smaller size than the prior years. But the hope there is we have a very highly competitive event, not that we haven't in the past, and make it a little bit more prestigious. From our state championship, 2 of our teams will be invited to represent the state at the World Championship in Houston. So coming back to our league meets, every team is expected to participate in a minimum of 2 league meets. Everyone, though, is still invited to the league tournament. Even if for whatever reason you do not participate in 2 league meets, we'll still invite you to the league tournament, but do keep in mind, teams are pre-ranked going into the league tournament. So if you do not participate in those league meets, your team will be far behind in the rankings because of that. One of the action items we need from you right now is we need you to tell us which of the league meets your team would like to participate in. So the dates are set and the locations are even set. So if you were to go to our calendar, you can see the dates and locations for our league meets. I do write up there the dates and the general cities they're in. The QR code there on the right is to a form for your team to fill out. And we do ask you do this before October 6th, which is quickly coming up on it. So what we do is we want your team to go in onto that form, tell us which locations and dates you would like to compete. Keep in mind that the January 20th and the February 3rd one are actually double league meet days. What that means is we have a league meet in the morning and a separate independent league meet in the afternoon. You do not need to go to both of them. You can go the morning, you can go the afternoon, or for whatever reason you need to do both, we can do that as well. At the moment, we're guaranteeing every team has the ability to participate in 2 league meets. Depending on how many teams end up registering for the season and how we fill out, it looks very likely that teams will have the opportunity to do 3 league meets, maybe even 4 this year, depending. We did expand our offering this year to 6 full league meets, both in the North and the South. So hopefully that does mean our teams can do 3, if not 4 league meets of their choice. League tournaments, as I said, everyone's invited to that, so you do not have to register for it. And then based on the results from the league tournament, our teams will progress to a state championship.
So I'd like to just interject. Yes, briefly. So first of all, Angela put an important correction, a minor correction to your slide there. So it is in Reno, not in Las Vegas, the state championship at the bottom there.
Oh, I copied this one from last year. I'm sorry. Yep.
It's okay. Yeah. So we don't confuse people. But yes, so in Reno, and I just, as Ru was just saying, I mean, we did expand. We have 6 league tournaments, North and South. So far, we have, unless some more here register, in the coming weeks, we have fewer teams than we did last year. So in some ways, we just created an oversupply, I guess, condition. So that'll be good for the teams that want to compete more often. And beyond that, and I'll continue to share more information as we get closer to league meets. But just as a preview of that, we'll continue what we did last season, which was essentially to have, I guess, what you might call a standby system for teams. So even if you're not assigned to that league meet, if your team is willing to, they can show up and at least indicate to the, coordinator of that event that they're willing and able to participate if there's space available. And if there's space available, then they would be able to participate. We definitely find, especially earlier in the season, we usually try to have capacity of 16 teams, and sometimes we don't get to 16 teams. And we also had some issues, with teams being assigned to a league meet and not showing up to that. So again, not a guarantee that you get to participate, but for those teams who are really excited and want to participate as much as possible, we'll continue that this season as well to provide those teams with as many opportunities as possible.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll correct those slides and get it changed. I copied over last year's. Bummer. The other thing I invite you to do right now is we do have our workshops available for you to sign up for. We do have a mixture of in-person and virtual workshops this year. Our in-person ones, we do ask that you register ahead of time just so we make sure we've got the space and capacity for them. We do have one this weekend. Our Robot in a Day workshop is this Saturday, both in Reno and Las Vegas. We are building a new chassis than we've done in prior years. So it's a great opportunity to come out, especially if you have new students who want to learn how to interact with these building platforms. Following that, we do have our computer-aided design, our CAD workshop being hosted by VC Silver Circuits. That will be a virtual workshop. It will be offered statewide. There's no need to sign up ahead of time. You can go to the calendar and see the Google Meet information there. That one is on October 14th. On October 28th, we have another in-person one where we have autonomous programming. That will be offered in the north and the south. It is a half-day workshop just in the morning before the scrimmage, as I was talking about earlier. This is a hands-on workshop. We do expect you to bring a built chassis at least that is wired up and ready to be programmed. And then in January, our friends from Awkward Silence are going to host another virtual workshop, this one on engineering portfolio. So as I was saying, engineering portfolio is a really important document that each team needs to produce in order to be eligible to receive any of the judged awards. So we are introducing that as a new workshop this year. It is, again, it's a virtual one, so no registration is necessary, but just mark your calendars now for that date. There is one other workshop in there. It's kind of unique. UNLV's Lee Business School is hosting a marketing and business workshop. It is an in-person workshop. If you're in the north, you're welcome to travel down. But for our southern teams specifically, this is a great opportunity to learn directly from the faculty and staff at UNLV on marketing business ideas. It is a joint workshop with our FRC program. So you'll see there the orange and the blue on our flyer. We do ask that you register ahead of time for this. Food will be provided to our teams. They're going to cover things like entrepreneurship, budgeting, fundraising, and marketing. And again, this is a wonderful opportunity to learn from faculty at UNLV on how to basically run your team like a business. So we do invite you to sign up for that. Other important task item, again, come back and circle around to the idea that there is First Headquarters and there is First Nevada. We are two separate nonprofits. Both of us would like to get paid for our different endeavors. To become an official First Tech Challenge team, you have to pay a $295 registration fee to First. And that gets you your team number and access to some other resources. Most of our teams have already paid that. What's about to happen, if you haven't seen it already, is First Nevada, as a separate nonprofit, we're going to ask all of our teams to pay a season fee. So it's not a registration fee, it's our season fee of $200. And that pays our nonprofit to help provide our workshops, to pay our custodial fees at the venues, and all of our equipment and whatnot. So do recognize as a team, there are two payments involved. One goes to First to register your team, and one is a season fee that goes to First Nevada to help keep the lights on while we're running our events. Teams, you should be seeing your invoices in the email soon, within a week or so, from my understanding. If you're a Tesla-sponsored team or an NDE-sponsored team, you will see a receipt showing that this payment has occurred. If you're a community team or a private school team, or you're not sponsored by Tesla or NDE, you will instead get an invoice asking you to pay that. We do need you to pay that as soon as possible so that we can, as I said, pay our bills. On the topic of sponsorship, over the last few years, we've been very fortunate to receive support from the Tesla Education Investment as well as the Nevada Department of Education grant. Those grants are ending. Tesla is done in the sense that we have no new rookie teams within the Tesla support, and the NDE funding, this is our last year as well. As a reminder of teams, you are really the source of fundraising. And I provide you here with a couple of places to start looking at. First has a great fundraising toolkit that is very comprehensive. It is a great beginning point and an ending point, to be honest. It really covers everything you might need to learn about with fundraising. As well, First provides a grants page. It's not exhaustive, but it does list out a number of known grants to our First robotics teams. definitely check it out to get some support. I just want to remind everyone that we are coming to the end of our financial support through First Nevada. It really is the responsibility of the teams to be fundraising. That's the case very strongly in other territories and states. So just kind of start thinking about maybe this year, start doing some fundraising and really ramping it up for the future. With that said, one of the easiest sources of funding you can get is from Gene Haas. We've sent this communication out a couple of times now. I just want to reiterate it, how important this is. Gene Haas does have some sponsorship for our First Tech Challenge teams of $2,000. This was really unique in that it can go to a public school team, but it also can go to a private school team with a 501c3 status or any team that has a 501c3 status. So if you're a community team and you have a 501c3, you're welcome to apply for this funding. This has been announced for a while. There isn't necessarily a closing date for it, but it is a first come, first serve source of funding. So please, please register and get this money, get this money. Yeah, literally. Go ahead and fill out the sponsorship application as soon as possible to get that support. With that said, when you are fundraising, do keep in mind that we are a nonprofit that supports all FIRST programs. And we kindly ask you to respect the sponsors that we're working directly with. You can see on our First Nevada website who our sponsors are. The reason I say this is a lot of times, as you're going to learn, fundraising is a long ball game, that it takes sometimes multiple years to build up a substantial sponsorship. So First Nevada, our sponsors we've been working with over many years, cultivating and fostering a relationship with them. It gets very confusing and sometimes can be actually misinformation if we have our teams also asking from our same supporters for money. They'll be like, well, why aren't you asking First Nevada and whatnot? So just please look over who our sponsors are and kind of respect who our sponsors are. And just kind of keep that in mind. Last thing here, you should have seen very recently, and you will continue to see this season, we are sending out monthly coaches questionnaires. They're very brief, 5-minute surveys. We just want to take a pulse from you to see how you're doing. Is everything going okay? Do you have a very high pulse? Are you anxious? Are you worried? And whatnot. We really appreciate if you would just take 5 minutes, fill those out. We do seriously take that feedback into consideration. What you tell us in these forums are the things we make sure gets covered in our workshops, gets covered in our newsletters and our coaches corners. You will see adjustments this year to things that were mentioned last year. So if you will, please just take a few minutes to fill out those coaches questionnaires. With that, I am finally done. I apologize. I took up the whole hour here. Most of our coaches corners won't be this long in terms of how much I have to deliver, but being the first one, I had a lot to cover this time. But I'm going to open the floor. If you have any questions, unmute, ask away, put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, so our team came a bit late. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can.
Okay, so our team came in a little bit later last year. We got 2 robots. So for this year with the new game and like the new building structure of it, do we get another robot or do we get parts to add to the robot that we already have?
No, so the phrasing we use is you probably got an orange bin, probably 2 orange bins.
Right, 2 orange.
Which is the Rev Robotics. We call that the kit parts. Each one of those bins by itself can build a complete robot. And then, of course, when you read the game manuals, specifically Game Manual 2, it'll give you restrictions of what you can add to that robot. This year with our funding, if you're a Tesla team or an NDE team, we're not giving any of our veteran teams additional parts.
Okay.
So you can take apart your old robot.
Okay.
You can modify your old robot. You can do whatever you want with it as long as you stay within the rules that are defined in game manual 2.
Okay. And then my other question is, we're trying to come to robot. Do students that I have coming to robot in a day, they have to register too, right? For robot in a day?
Not yet. I'm glad you asked that. It's a very good question. Before we start having official competitions, you will need to put together your roster, and I'll cover that in the October Coaches Corner, how you do it. First is actually changing the process, supposedly to make it easier. For our workshops, we don't require that you have that roster ready or anything. We recognize it's still a fluid situation, so yeah.
Okay, and then do we bring a robot? Do I supply a robot? Because when I did the training over the summer, I had a robot there that I shared with another person who was attending the training. So are you guys supplying? Sorry.
Tomorrow I'm going to send out an email to our registered teams. I was actually waiting tomorrow specifically so I can get this Coaches Corner in, hoping to get a few more teams to sign up. I'll send an email tomorrow with detailed information about what to bring and when and where to bring it. But to answer your question, bring that orange bin. Does not have to be assembled robot. In fact, it'd be better if it's not assembled. Bring your electronics components, so your driver hub, your control hub, and video game controller, and a computer that has the Rev hardware client pre-installed. Yeah.
Okay. And then, are you guys supplying food or no food? Should I guess bring kids some donuts or something?
We this particular workshop is our only all-day workshop that's a standalone by itself. We don't provide food. We just ask teams to brown bag it. In there. And we do take a lunch break. And it's very much the morning time is spent building the robot, and it's a really come and go as you please sort of feel to it. The afternoon is a little bit more directed as we go through the programming aspect. So you're welcome. I think in the South, I'm thinking we're in the cafeteria, so we definitely have food in there. And I think in the North, it's okay if we have food there-ish, maybe. Yeah.
Will they have a food truck? Because I think one time they had a food truck or something.
I don't believe either of our venues are going to have a food truck this time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, those are all my questions.
Good. Those are all very good. I'm glad you asked them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can confirm in the North that food is okay at the venue, and there will not be a food truck, so you need to bring your own lunch.
Yeah. We are past the 8 o'clock hour. I do try to limit these to 1 hour, so I will stay on as long as you have questions. But you can jump off. I have no more information I'm going to share directly, but I'm here to answer questions. So if you need to jump off, understand. Appreciate your time tonight, and thank you. Otherwise, I'll just stay on here and we can keep asking questions. So either in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away.